That pushed Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona to wide receiver 2. He was the consensus top receiver for quite a while, the type of guy that was talked about in the top 5. That has soured just a little bit. At the pro day, he ran somewhere between 4.53 and 4.55. Big-bodied, long receiver. What do you like or not like about Tetairoa McMillan?
Yeah, it feels like the consensus has moved in my direction since the start of this. Like when I first watched Tetairoa McMillan, apparently he doesn't like Tet McMillan.
He doesn't like
T-Mac or
Tet.
Tetairoa is fine.
I'm
Tet
good with
is not acceptable.
I'm good with Tetairoa, whatever he wants to do.
So when I first watched him, I'm like, I don't really see wide receiver 1 in a draft class. Like and this was before sort of watching all the other receivers and seeing what the other alternatives were. So I'm kind of initially watching his tape and was a little bit underwhelmed. It wasn't that I didn't like him. It's that I just didn't see, I would be surprised if this tape that I'm watching is the best wide receiver in this draft class. And I think people are starting to come around to that idea and that he's worth, he's the best wide receiver in the class. He's not worth, the 6th, the 7th overall pick. He's more of a mid of the first round, lower end of the first round type of receiver. Now, that's still a very good player, right? And so there's still a lot to like about him. His long speed, I think, is really good. I mean, I know he ran a 4.5 something, but actually, when you get him loose and he's got a head of steam going, he's gone. You're not going to catch him.
Build up speed.
Like,
he's a build up speed guy, right? Build up speed guy. Yeah.
So he's almost like it's almost the opposite of Travis Hunter in that regard. Instead, like he doesn't have the instant burst and the real acceleration drive. But if you get him with the ball in his hands and he's running, you're not catching him. So he's got speed. But what really jumped out to me is for a guy that's 6'5", 212 pounds, his lateral quickness is way better than you expect it to be. And it shows up both before and after the catch. After the catch in particular, I love McMillan. Like when the ball's in his hands, suddenly it's like it unlocks this level of fluidity to his movement that's really impressive at that size. It also shows up, though, like there's a lot of really good route running that you don't expect for a guy that size. Like he's got a lot of ability to cut laterally and to move. So I don't see him as this dominant, clear number one top receiver of the class, but I think he's really good, just different than people would expect him to be.
Yeah, I went on an emotional roller coaster watching Tetairoa McMillan. I mean, coming out of 2023 film, the first thing that I saw was the lack of dynamism off the line, right? At the average acceleration, and when you use the word build up speed, it's like, all right, he's kind of slow off the line of scrimmage. It takes him a little bit of time. And then the more I watched him, and I think this is going to be a theme for me for a lot of players in this draft, Sam, he's just good at everything. That's the theme for me in this draft. There's a lot of receivers who are just really good at receiver things, but maybe not the best athlete, maybe not the guy that you're like, man, this guy's definitely a top 10. And when I watch McMillan at his size, sinking his hips in and out of routes, he's good at that. His ball skills, I think, are excellent. Just straight up, do you have a lot of drops? No. Catches the ball generally and catches the ball off his frame. Good feel for running routes. He's tough over the middle. The toughness factor, that's one of those traits I think I've always, in recent years especially, it just, I want to see it from players, right? When you think about Steve Smith, if you think about Julian Edelman, if you think about a lot of the players that just took big hits over the middle, that really did separate them from a lot of other players. I think McMillan has some of that. So I come into the season thinking, my only question with McMillan's speed. And then in week 1, he goes off against New Mexico, looks a little bit faster, but it's New Mexico. And then you get through this year, and there are some games where this is my roller coaster, right? And I'm like, dude's not even running off the line of scrimmage on some plays. And then there's Utah where he almost looks, he's not finishing his routes. He's kind of getting bodied at the catch point. And I'm wondering, like, why is there so much, there's some inconsistency here. He was running some routes that looked like it was the 22nd play of a no-huddle drive. And it was like play 2 or whatever. So again, I don't know if he was hurt. I don't know what was going on. I don't know if he's told to. There was also some times, right, in Arizona's offense, it looked like, hey, I'm covered. I'm just gonna run the safety off, and it was still thrown to him. And that's right. That's never good when you're just running a clear out and the QB is like, I'm gonna just chuck it into double coverage. So I almost don't blame him. This isn't like, remember the old Baylor offense when dudes were literally told not to run because they run so many vertical routes, and you just take a play off, and scouts didn't know how to handle that for a while. So I don't know if there's some of that to McMillan where it's like, hey, take a play off, but these are like 5-yard hitch routes and stuff that I'm talking about. So this is a bit of a roller coaster for me because there was some inconsistency and some, like the Utah game in particular, and a couple of midseason this year that were they were kind of bad for McMillan.
Yeah, he has some weird plays where I can't tell how many times, like he kind of loafs off the ball sometimes in a way that's difficult to tell if he's actually that, like if his build-up speed is really that slow or if he's actually not, like if it's a deliberate attempt to vary the pace of his route or if it's actually for some reason he's loafing off the ball on these routes. And again, it's not like it doesn't make sense as a tiredness thing because it can happen on 1st and 10 at the start of a drive. It can happen right at the start of the game. Like doesn't make sense that like, oh, he's obviously just run 3 go routes in a row. The guy's tired. So those are a little bit weird. And because of that, that's part of why generally I don't love his release off the line against physical coverage. I don't know that he sheds that particularly well. It doesn't immediately like get rid of that contact. Can run by it. Like again, he's actually got wheels. But if a guy gets hold of him physically, he doesn't defeat that easily and quickly with his hands. He can get kind of stuck on that contact, which is a problem for a big body guy like that who isn't going to necessarily separate with quickness, and it leads to those contested catches, which generally he's good at. He gets a lot of comps to Drake London. I don't think it's a particularly good comp for a variety of different reasons, but I don't think he's as good as Drake London at the catch point. Drake London was like a savant with the ball in the air. McMillan isn't that. He's got some spectacular one-handed catches, but I don't think he's as good at the catch point as London is.
Hey guys, just taking a quick break to tell you, hey, just over 50% of you are still unsubscribed to Check the Mic. It helps the channel. It helps to make sure that you don't miss any of our shows. So if you have a chance, hit the subscribe button right now. Yeah, London, I mean, the first thing that caught my eye with Drake London was his lateral agility, which is not what he's known for, but his lateral agility, Drake London, for his size. The first thing that caught my eye. And then you watch London at the catch point, and he just catches everything, right? We always talk about contested catches being kind of an unstable thing. And even the great George Pickens, who you would say that's the number one thing that he does. He goes through stretches like he did in Pittsburgh where he's 0 for his last 10 on contested catches. Drake London, I don't know where he ranks in the NFL, but he's got to be 80th, 90th percentile every year. Drake London is one of the best in those contested situations. And it's not the only thing that he does. He can get in and out of routes. So I don't think McMillan, I'm with you. I don't think McMillan's going to be that level, but he might be a little bit cleaner after the catch. As you said, there's like a little bit more, right? There's a little bit more dynamic ability to McMillan there, but he's going to catch the ball well. He will catch it in traffic. He will catch it in contested situations. Anything else you want to add? Because there's some interesting fits. I want to talk some fits for McMillan in the top 10 to 15, because I think there are some ones that already are being mentioned in the chat that would be great for him.
Yeah, like I think he's a lot better than Drake London after the catch, which becomes really interesting. So London actually, like his production ticked up when they started putting him in the slot and moving him more inside. McMillan again already has, like, he spent 20% of his time in the slot. He's got a lot more wiggle than you would expect for a guy that size. So I as much as I don't think they're particularly close stylistically as players, other than like big, tall, and pretty heavily built, I do think that they could be used very similar. Like, I think if you continued this idea of moving McMillan around, putting him in the slot, letting him exploit those zone coverages as well, because he's got a good understanding of leverage, tries to play, defensive backs against their leverage. He like attacks the weak side, makes them take a weird step or blind spot, makes them adjust, all those kinds of things. He really has a good understanding of coverage and how to get open that way. And that's the kind of stuff that works really well from the slot. So I would love to see him deployed in a similar way to Drake London, even if I don't think they're that similar as players.
So I see our friend Drake Holiday in the chat bringing up Tetairoa McMillan at number 5 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, at number 12 to the Dallas Cowboys. That's going to be another story of this draft class. I like McMillan overall as a player. I don't think you want to bring him in as your true number 1 wide receiver. And it's kind of a nebulous term, wide receiver 1. I think that there's 12 of them in the NFL, maybe. I mean, we're talking you drop them into an offense like A.J. Brown in Philadelphia, and Jalen Hurts' stats go through the roof. You drop Tyreek Hill into Miami, his stats go through the roof. I think Brian Thomas Jr. has a chance to do that with Trevor Lawrence going forward. So I would love to see McMillan fit with somewhere where there is a Brian Thomas Jr., somewhere where there is a CeeDee Lamb, and then that looks potentially special. If the Giants weren't looking at maybe Travis Hunter, I mean, the Giants are at 3, might be a little high for McMillan, but McMillan would be an awesome compliment to Malik Neighbors. So I would love to, I think Jacksonville at 5, even if McMillan isn't the type of guy you normally take at 5, because you already have Brian Thomas Jr., isn't that a nice little 1-2 punch for Trevor Lawrence that should be considered?
Yeah, I mean, from McMillan's perspective, I love all of those fits because he doesn't need to be the number one guy, and I think he would absolutely cook as a complementary piece. But for exactly that reason, I think all of those spots are overdrafting him if they take him at that point. If that's your logic from the team perspective, why would you not wait until the second round and grab another one of these receivers for whom that would also be true, that they would cook as a number 2 instead of a number 1, and you don't have to spend the first round pick on it. So I love the fit, but I don't think it makes sense.
My point is I think he's more of a T. Higgins type, where you could see the path where for half the league you would think, okay, McMillan's going to solve my wide receiver 1 spot because we just don't have one, but he would be at his best like T. Higgins when you are complimenting a guy that's already elite, and that, you know, as a team you can maximize that 1-2 punch. Like McMillan would be one of the best 2s in the league, much like T. Higgins is right now.
Yeah, but my point would simply be that at no point in his career, including now, would anybody give up one of the first 12 picks in the draft for T. Higgins. Like that's the issue with that is I think, yes,
I don't know.
If that was the case, somebody would have done it already. He wasn't drafted that high, and he hasn't been traded for that first round pick. And certainly a team like New England was not willing to give up the number 4 overall pick for T. Higgins. So the closest you're getting is Dallas. Would Dallas cough up the 12th overall pick for T. Higgins? I doubt it. So as much Sam, as he could.
That's not apples to apples. That's not apples to apples because T. Higgins needs to get paid. You're talking about a rookie contract receiver versus paying T. Higgins $30+ million and the first round pick. Those are 2 different things.
Nobody's giving up that pick for that guy.
Rookie contract T. Higgins would go in the top 12 right now.
Maybe.
Absolutely. Like, if you drop T. Higgins into this draft class, you would say Travis Hunter, T. Higgins, and he'd be in the top. He would absolutely be in the top 12.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.